The Mark 8 Golf GTI is finally here. It's always represented that great balance between an aspirational and attainable performance car and great everyday driver. What's new about this car is the price. The Mark 7.5 Golf GTI started at about $43,000 and settled at $47,000. This new car will cost you $53,000 before on-roads. Interesting, given it's got the same chassis and the same running gear as before. What's it like to drive? Well, today we're going to take it on the road and the track to see whether it still hits the mark. Volkswagen's designers have taken an evolutionary step with the Mark 8 Golf GTI styling. They've streamlined the look, included new daytime running lights across the grille, as well as cool hexagonal fog lights down below. Overall, I think it looks smart. What's not new is the engine. It's a carryover item from 2019 with the same power and torque outputs. Also, the chassis is fundamentally the same too. The only change there is an aluminium subframe that takes 3 kilograms off its weight. Our test car also features 18-inch wheels, a large rear spoiler, and plenty of GTI badges. The biggest change with the Mark 8 Golf GTI versus the Mark 7.5 is its interior layout. Volkswagen have removed all physical buttons and made everything controlled through the infotainment display. Now, this has created some conjecture both internationally and locally too in our comments section, but there is some merit to this, and I'll show you that now. For example, in order to change the fan, you press this button here, use the fan slider control, then press X to go back to where you were going. There are some buttons, however, no volume knob, but there are some temperature controls and volume controls on the dash itself. Look, I do prefer tactile buttons, but I reckon you'll get used to this system in due time. Moving on to the lower center console, and Volkswagen has really streamlined this area. We've got a really small gear knob that I quite like, a start button, and a really clever induction charging pad. What you can do is put your phone in here, and then you can place your key on the top. We've heard some cases where people have placed their key on a wireless charging pad and cooked it by accident. This stops that happening. Behind this area, you'll find a versatile cubby with fold-out cup holders and a large center armrest as well. In terms of general ambience, you've got the classic tartan GTI seats. This car has no leather, so it gets cloth. The seats are one piece with Alcantara bolstering. I think they look fantastic. Directly in front of the driver is a digital instrument display that's highly customizable. However, my biggest bugbear with this cabin comes with interacting with it, because you have to use these touch-sensitive buttons on the steering wheel. They're a little bit finicky to use and a little bit laggy to input too. I honestly reckon these are more challenging to use than the infotainment system itself. If you're looking for some practical reasons to convince your better half to buy a Golf GTI, I'll give you a couple of those now. In terms of space, it's pretty good here. A couple of centimetres of knee room, good foot room, good headroom. GTI is a comfortable place to be. You've got ISOFIX points on either seat, meaning you can fit 2 baby seats in this car. There's rear air vents, rear temperature controls, something you don't see very often, 2 USB-C ports and 1 touch windows all round. In terms of more practical items like storage, this cabin is excellent. You've got device holders up front, something to store some books down below. There's also an armrest with 2 cup holders and a ski flap to access the cargo area. Boot space in the back of the Mark 8 Golf GTI measures up to 381 litres, unchanged from before. We sampled the Mark 8 Golf GTI at London Raceway, a relatively new and small racetrack west of Sydney. It's only 1.4 kilometres long but has a great technical section that rewards a small and nimble car. Despite not being an outright track car like say an i30N or Renault Sport Megane, we still had a heap of fun. It's always good to drive a Golf GTI on a racetrack. Sure, it's not an outright track car, but it's a good place to explore its ability legally. And I've got to say, it does have a lot of ability. What the main difference is between the 7.5 and the 8 is the calibration of the systems that run it. The traction control is really intuitive. The ESC sort of encourages you to have a bit of fun with it. You don't find yourself driving around it, more driving with it. Another more practical version of where this electronic architecture comes to life is in terms of its adaptive dampers. This car has 15 stages of adjustment in its suspension. The old 7.5 Golf GTI had 3. That gives it a much wider breadth of ability and enables you to tailor the car to suit the scenario you're in. Given we're on a racetrack where maximum firm works really well. The Golf GTI features an electronic locking differential that helps pull it through corners. Unlike much older versions of this system, it supports heaps of grip and never really defaulted to spinning one wheel. The Mark 8 Golf GTI features the same 180 kilowatt, 370 Newton meter turbocharged 4-cylinder as it did back in 2019. 0 to 100 times have also risen, from 6.2 seconds with the previous car to 6.3 with the new Mark 8. Back on the road is a more natural habitat for a Golf GTI. Power delivery is smooth and linear. On this nice road we're on now, you can knock it back a gear. Torque is pretty much instantaneous, above 2,000 RPM. The steering is nice and direct, probably a little bit sharper than it was before, if anything. And it's a great car, it's transparent, it lets you know what's going on, and it's fun, most importantly. I'm having a bit too much fun here, to be honest. Something else great about this car is that 15-step adjustable suspension system that I mentioned earlier. On a road like this that's got some imperfections, it's a little bit bumpy, you can just move it off stiff a bit. Gives you more traction, makes the car more malleable, makes it more fun, to be honest. What you can do if the road becomes billiard table smooth all of a sudden is dial it back up to get an extra bit of firmness back. Something unique about our Australian specification cars is they don't have a petrol particulate filter like the ones in Europe. Those cars in Europe, as a consequence of that filter, they've lost a bit of noise, whereas our car still makes a good tune. I'll just knock it down a few gears and give you some acceleration. You still get a bit of a burble on the upshift. If you lift, you get some pops and crackles too, just slightly. It's still got some of that GTI character that those cars in Europe are missing. The 7-speed dual clutch in this car is great too. It's sharp, it's quick to respond, it changes gears really nicely. It's worth noting that they've retained a dual clutch transmission in this car, whereas the regular Mark 8 Golf, the more pedestrian version, actually uses a torque converter item. So if you want those snappy shifts, you've got to pick the GTI. One downside to this transmission versus torque converter equipped Golfs is that there is some low speed lurching. Doing a reverse park up a hill is a bit of a pain still, but you just learn to get used to it and learn to drive around it. That's the thing with a Golf GTI, it remains a really fun car. What you can do is leave the hustle and bustle, come up here on a good road, turn the stiffness up and have a really good time. When you're done, you're packed up shop, put it in the economical mode, soften it off, cruise home and get back to the 9 to 5. It's a really versatile car and that's always been the hallmark of the Golf GTI. So where does that leave us with the Mark 8 Golf GTI? Well, if you're coming from one that's a couple of years old, you might not see the value in this car. It has the same engine as before, the same chassis, and does feel the same in certain environments. If you're going to be new to the GTI brand, you're going to absolutely love it. It's still the benchmark hot hatch. It's versatile, there's heaps of performance, you can throw your kids in the back, it pretty much does everything. Another thing that's going to be interesting is when Volkswagen Australia unveils the pricing for its new Mark 8 Golf R. That might make this car seem a little bit more palatable in a showroom environment. Time will tell. We're hoping to line up some comparisons with this Golf GTI in the near future. If there's anything else you'd like to know, let us know in the comments below. And as usual, make sure you like and subscribe to our channel.